When God calls you to be the chosen one, it is not just a title, but a sacred assignment that requires your utmost attention, obedience, and dedication. But here is the bottom line. God's calling often requires you to make sacrifices that others will not understand. It requires separation from even those closest to you, family and friends. Imagine being called to a higher purpose but find yourself isolated from the very people who have known you all your life. That sounds harsh, doesn't it? This is often the path that the chosen ones must walk away. But why is this necessary? Why do you have to step out of your comfort zone from those who were your source of security? And how can you overcome the pain of having to leave behind those you love to enter the destiny God has planned for you? Start by looking at the story of Abraham in Genesis 1:21. God commanded him to leave from your country, your people, and your family. Your father came to the land I will show you. Abraham was asked not only to leave his home but also his familiar world, called to separate from everything he knew to fulfill God's plan for his life. But Abraham trusted God, and through his obedience, God made him the father of many nations. The division was not just a physical act, but an act of faith in which God was refining him to prepare him for a future greater than he could have imagined. But what about Jesus? Why? Even Jesus, the Son of God, faced rejection and misunderstanding from his own family and town. In Mark 6 verse 3, people called Jesus the carpenter, son of Mary, and how they insulted him, possible savior of the world. The chaotic fire was the same man they had seen growing up in their village. Jesus was not honored in his hometown because they could not see beyond his past. Jesus knew the calling in his life big beyond their expectations. He chose to focus on his divine purpose rather than conform to their limited view of him, a challenge many of the elect face when leaving their comfort zone of familiarity and embracing the uncomfortable truth that God's call is often requires us to stand alone. But this is a question to consider: how many there are. Have you ever felt misunderstood even by those closest to you? Have God's calling on your life seemed too great for those around you to grasp? Being told that you are too different or too different for the path God is calling you to? If so, you are not alone. Then this is exactly what God is preparing you for at a time when your purpose requires you to go beyond, rise above the noise, and follow Him, even with those you love can't see what you see. As we go deeper into the topic, we will explore how God refines those He chooses through separation, the sacrifices that come with it, and the seemingly painful act of leaving loved ones can be the very thing that leads you to your divine destiny. What if separation is separation, not a punishment, but a northeast necessary step in your life? Transformation. You can trust that God's plan for you is far greater than anything your family and friends can bring. Stay with me, because the answers can be profound than you ever imagined as you reflect on this. Ask yourself if you are ready to leave familiarity, even if it means walking alone. God is waiting for your answer. God's chosen people have come to leave friends and family behind. Part 1: Sacred Tasks and Early Life Challenges. Have you ever wondered if you were chosen for something greater? Are the trials and tribulations in life a sign of a noble journey that God has prepared? God's chosen ones. This phrase rings out not only as a declaration, but also as a reminder of a sacred responsibility. When you realize you are called, the illumination in your soul is not a coincidence, but a summons from a great power, inviting you to step into the light and carry out your intended mission. But why is this journey full of difficulties? Could jealousy and disapproval from those closest to you be part of the plan? The book of Revelation reminds us, "Whoever has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the church." Revelation 2 verse 7. The Spirit has called you, but that call is not for everyone. As you walk the sacred path, your light attracts attention, both positive and negative. Some people will look at you with admiration, but others may feel threatened by your progress, instigated by envy. Look at the story of Joseph in Genesis. When he shared his dreams of visions given to him by God with his brothers, instead of receiving support, he was met with hatred. "Let's kill him and see what his dreams will be like," they said. Genesis 37 verse 20. These words are not only a reaction of jealousy, but also an expression of darkness as it tries to block out the light. But have you ever thought that these obstacles are actually stepping stones that God puts in place to protect you from greater dangers? In His wisdom, God often takes His chosen people out of toxic environments. Have you noticed that some relationships have suddenly changed? People who were once close suddenly became distant. Is it a punishment, or is it God's way of protecting you from invisible dangers? Ask yourself, can your dreams blossom if you remain stuck in environments that constrain you? Part 2. Separation to be refined. Separation, the feeling of loneliness and the pain of giving up the familiar, is a recurring theme in the journey of the chosen ones. But have you ever considered that isolation is not abandonment but preparation? In the wilderness, Moses met God in a burning bush. In Egypt, Joseph was abandoned but eventually became the man who brought life to millions. In Revelation, God calls out, "Do not be afraid, for I am with you. Do not be afraid, for I am your God." Revelation 21 verse 3. Can you see, even in loneliness, that God is there, guiding your every step? Isolation is not a sign of failure, but an invitation to grow closer to God. Jesus had to spend 40 days in the desert, enduring the strongest temptations from Satan before beginning his mission. He was not allowed to shy away from challenges, because it was in the wilderness that his power and purpose were affirmed. Have you ever felt that silence and distance from the world is God's way of positioning you for growth? Perhaps, just as gold must pass through fire, you must also endure this refinement to shine. However, separation also comes with responsibility. When you are chosen, you cannot live for yourself. Your journey is not only your own story, but also hope for those around you. Think of Nehemiah, who kept his vision of rebuilding Jerusalem a secret until the time was right. "I don't tell anyone what God has put in my heart," he said. Not yet 2:12. What is the reminder here? Not everyone will understand your vision, and not everyone is worthy of your sharing. Part 3. Challenges are stepping stones to transformation. When you face jealousy, betrayal, and criticism, remember that these challenges are not the end, but the beginning of transformation. Just like Joseph was sold into slavery, like Jesus was rejected by his own homeland, you too must walk through darkness to find light. The human heart is deceitful more than anything and cannot be cured. Jeremiah 17 verse 9 reminds us of the ease with which jealousy and suspicion can overtake those around us. But you don't have to walk alone. The just will live by faith. Romans 1 verse 17. This is a promise that God will give you the strength to overcome. Imagine that today's suffering is just the door to a future you cannot yet imagine. Perhaps you are at a crossroads where you must decide. Will you let trials drag you down, or will you stand up, trust in God's plan, and move on? Abraham's story reminds us that obedience and faith are the keys to unlocking a greater future. When he left his hometown, his family, and what was familiar, he did not know his destination. But it was that obedience that made him the father of many nations. Are you willing to walk in darkness with absolute trust in God? Perhaps, like Abraham, God is preparing you for a future beyond your wildest dreams. Part 4. Overcoming and connecting with destiny. Have you ever wondered why God puts you through trials that seem beyond your ability to bear? Is it a punishment or His way of training you to become stronger? Mission of God's chosen ones, it is not an easy journey, but a journey planned with great goals. Just as gold is refined in fire, you too are being prepared to shine brightly. Jesus once said, "Whoever wants to come after me must deny himself, take up his cross and follow me." Matthew 16 verse 24. This teaching is not only an invitation but also a reminder that the journey of the chosen people is not for the faint-hearted. When you face adversity, remember that those challenges do not come to destroy you, but to build you. You may feel isolated, but that's just the first step to connecting more deeply with the purpose God has for you. Looking back at Joseph's story, when he was sold into Egypt, he may have thought it was all over. But in every step he took, from a slave to a prisoner, and finally to a prime minister, God was always with him. It was in isolation and trial that Joseph learned to trust and walk with steadfastness. You too, maybe you don't see the big picture right now, but believe that God is working through every little detail of your life. Imagine that each suffering you experience is like a piece of the puzzle that God is creating. Are you willing to endure temporary discomfort to gain eternal glory? Jesus was rejected by those closest to him, but he did not falter. He understood that what he was doing was not only for him but also for all humanity. You too, your journey is not just for you, but is also an inspiration and guiding light for those around you. Part 5. The invitation to change. When God calls you, He not only changes your circumstances, but also transforms your heart. Have you ever felt that the suffering you went through changed you in a way you never expected? In Revelation, God promises, "Behold, I make all things new." Revelation 21 verse 5. This promise applies not only to the world but also to yourself, your soul, your mind, and your life. The process of change is never easy. It requires you to let go of the familiar, even if that means leaving the people and places you once loved. But God never takes it away without replacing it with something better. Just as Abraham left his home and family to go to a land he had never known, you too must walk in faith, believing that God will lead you to a better future. Have you ever experienced moments when you felt challenged beyond your limits? Remember, God never puts you in a situation that you cannot overcome. I can do all things through him who gives me strength. Philippians 4 verse 13. When you put your trust in God, he will give you the strength and wisdom to face any challenge. Your dreams, big or small, are seeds that God has planted in your heart. But like all seeds, they need time and the right environment to grow. Don't let criticism or other people's doubts derail you. Remember the story of Nehemiah, who rebuilt the walls of Jerusalem despite opposition and ridicule from his enemies. Remember that God is great and awesome. He told his followers, not yet 4:14. It's a reminder that when you stand firm in your faith, nothing can stop you from fulfilling your destiny. Part 6. The future of the chosen ones. As you look ahead, remember that you were chosen not only to endure but also to triumph. The victor will inherit all things, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. Revelation 21 verse 7. This promise is your final destination, a glorious future where all your suffering and trials will be rewarded. Think of your journey as a fire. It can smolder or burn brightly, but it can never be extinguished. This fire is a guiding light for those around you, a testament to God's presence in your life. Are you ready to let this fire burn even stronger? Remember, you don't have to fight alone. God has placed the right companions on your path, people who will encourage you, pray with you, and fight alongside you. But just like Abraham had to say goodbye to Lot, there are people you need to let go of to move forward. Trust that when you let go of the old, God will give you something new, something better, something more consistent with your divine purpose. What is your final calling? Get up and walk with courage. Let your dreams, purpose, and mission be a beacon for others. You are God's chosen one. A lamp cannot be hidden under the bed but must be placed on the top of a hill to illuminate the whole world. So, are you ready to let your light shine? Remember, God is always with you. In every step, every suffering, and every victory, he is leading you to a future beyond what you can imagine. Have faith, and let your journey be a testament to God's infinite power and love. You are never alone because you are the chosen one. Part 7. Strength in solitude. Stop for a moment and ask yourself, why do you feel alone when you need support the most? Perhaps you've seen loved ones leave, relationships fall apart, or dreams of being judged by others. But remember, isolation is not abandonment. It is preparation. God's chosen ones often put into situations where they are alone, not to be weak but to be strong. In the Bible, God took Jesus into the wilderness for 40 days. There, Jesus was tempted, tested, but also strengthened. In solitude, he found strength. You too, when you feel placed in a lonely place, remember that it is the space God is using to communicate with you. Are you willing to quietly listen to his call? Think of David, who spent lonely days in the desert before becoming king. It was during those days that he wrote the most beautiful hymns, expressing his deep gratitude to God. Psalm 23 verses 1-4 saying, "The Lord is my shepherd. I will lack nothing. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." Do you see that, even in the weakest moments, God is always closer than ever? Part 8. Destiny and vision. Have you ever asked yourself, what is my purpose in this life? For God's chosen people, destiny is not just a concept but a calling. Revelation 3 verse 8 said, "I have opened before you a door that no one can close." This door is a symbol of your mission, an invitation to step into your God-ordained purpose. But not everyone can see that door. The people around you may only see limitations, difficulties, or failures. They cannot understand that you do not live for worldly things, but to fulfill God's will. Are you willing to walk through the door that God has opened, even though you don't know what's waiting on the other side? Remember the story of Nehemiah, who received a vision from God to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. In Nehemiah 2 verses 17 to 20, he persuaded people to stand up and take action, despite ridicule and opposition from his enemies. You too, let your vision be a guiding light for others, even if they don't understand or believe in you. Part 9. The Great Mission of the Chosen One. God's call is not an easy journey. It requires sacrifice, obedience, and absolute trust. But have you ever thought about what happens when you respond to that call? Look at the life of Moses, who led the Israelites across the Red Sea, or Esther, who dared to stand up to save her people. Both are called to carry out missions far beyond human capabilities. But they did it because they trusted God. God's chosen ones, your mission is not just a job, but a journey to transform the world around you. You may not see results right away, but every step you take is making a difference. The seeds you plant today will bloom one day when you don't expect it. Jesus said, "For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it." Matthew 16 verse 25. This teaching reminds us that sacrifice is not a loss but an investment in eternity. Are you willing to trade your current comfort to achieve a higher purpose? Part 10. Conclusion. Walk in the light. Your journey is unique, tailor-made by the hand of your Creator. The suffering, trials, and triumphs you experience are not by accident. Every step you take is part of the great plan that God has in mind. Remember, you never go alone. God is walking with you, leading you through every high mountain and every low valley. He is giving you the strength to overcome every challenge and the courage to face the uncertain. I will not leave you nor forsake you. Deuteronomy 31 verse 6. So, are you willing to respond to God's invitation? Stand up, walk, and let your light shine. You are an integral part of His plan, a beacon of light in the darkness, a testament to God's love and power. Remember, you are one God's chosen ones, a person chosen to make miracles happen. Now stop and pray. Take some time to talk to God, to listen for His call, and to feel His presence in your life. Your journey has just begun, and the best is still ahead. Are you ready to walk in the light? God bless you as you walk in your calling that